Do we want to go spend the money at the Chinese buffet for a plate? Oh no, let's go with 12. Let's be the best. Do we want to eat one Twinkie? I mean, anybody can eat one Twinkie. Let's eat the box.
With 75% of all American healthcare costs going to diet-related diseases, Doug's story is one that many Americans know all too well.
I would go to people's homes and they'd be like, okay, you can sit over there. And I would walk up and I would test the couch. And if the couch was too squishy, I would make the joke, hey, I'll sit down, but you're going to have to help me get up. And I'm not lying. And it may take two of you, get my arms out and you guys just pull me up.
What is it like for someone who's been over 500 pounds to begin turning their life around with a plant-based diet?
Or were you ever morbidly obese? I'm not talking about 10 or 20 pounds. I'm talking about packing on a couple 100 pounds. Did you ever do that? Well, no, I never was your size. Then don't say anything to me.
Doug has invited us to share that journey with him.
Hey, this is Doug, and I am the Second Chance Fat Man. I'm really glad to be here with you guys today. We're going to talk about the journey of going from 500 pounds to 387 pounds and ultimately, hopefully, down to 200 pounds. We're going to talk about incorporating a whole food, plant-based lifestyle, a solid exercise program. We're going to talk about overcoming the pre-diabetic diagnosis, the ability to not get out of a chair, the ability to not fit in a plane seat anytime soon. We're going to talk about all these things that morbidly obese, or as I like to call myself, my fat guy, that we deal with every single day.
I do have one question, which I found very interesting. So you named your channel Second Chance Fat Man. Now, and you call yourself a fat man. And there's a lot of people I know that if they see this posted, they're going to react negatively because they think that it's like one of those words we're not allowed to say, call someone fat. And I'm just curious about your reasoning for calling yourself that and naming your channel that.
The name of the channel is Second Chance Fat Man. And literally at this point in my life, I'm 37 years old. That is what I really want in life. I want a second chance. I think it's honestly just who I am, to be honest with you. I know, I have a lot of friends that are former alcoholics. They don't drink anymore, but they're an alcoholic. They'll tell you, I can't do this. The alcoholism also went back to who they were at the core. And who I was I was a fat man. I was that selfish person. So no, in no way, shape, or form am I trying to hurt anyone's feelings. But this channel, this is about being real and transparent with who I am. I've made the choice for over 15 years to put myself in the shoes that I'm wearing today. It was my choice. It was my decision. So again, if someone was upset by my title, I would just quickly say, I'm sorry. But it's not anything that's going to bring tears to my eyes either.
Well, one thing that there's a group, and I don't know if you're familiar with them, they're called the National Association of Fat Acceptance. I think that's what the acronym is. And they actually advocate for people to use the term fat because they say it's just a descriptive adjective. There should be no negative connotation associated with, like it's not an insult, it's simply an adjective. And so I think that sometimes when people do use that word, that's what they're using, and it's not meant to be an insult, which I think is probably how you're using it as well.
Oh, absolutely. But again, it goes back to, being real with myself. I remember growing up, and I was just telling someone this last week, but I remember growing up and there were these commercials all over TV about the hair club for men. And this guy would come out of the pool, and he'd have his hair going and he'd say, not only the president, I'm the client too. I told someone that once I obtained my goal in weight loss, I'd love to create a club called like the FFOA, Former Fatties of America, or something like that, and again, it ties back into who I am and my personality. But I have to realize, just like that alcoholic will tell you, hey, I've been sober for 5 months, 5 years, 25 years, I can't step back into a bar. I have to realize that this is a daily choice for me, because that fat man that hopefully in a year and a half becomes the former fat man, he's still right here. He's still me. Life could hit me with something that says, oh my goodness, where's my Coca-Cola, totally out of the blue? How am I going to handle that? So by identifying really who I am, I will hopefully control my future that much better.
Hey man, what you kind of touched on it earlier, but what really motivates you? You mentioned you're just sick of being like overweight and obese and feeling horrible, but I think in your videos you mentioned like family and stuff like that.
Well, I think, it kind of goes back to that statement of not putting all your eggs in one basket. Okay. So my family is my ultimate motivator. Okay. That's not a cliche answer. That's the truth. But when we talked about that, when I went to that water slide place, what hit me? What hit me at that is I was sitting at the table and I look across, and no lie, and I'm not judging him. There is a 12-year-old boy. That 12-year-old boy, and I'm saying 12 because of his face. He was probably 250 pounds. What's his life going to be like? Is his life going to be like mine, where, being made fun of? You can't do certain things. When all the other kids say, hey, let's go for the bike ride, and let's ride bikes all day, he's saying no. He's okay if you want to go do the Xbox or PlayStation all day long because he's just sitting there. But any type of activity, he's going to be let out. So what really hits me, or as far as drawing motivation, is, man, if I can do this and I can have a one-on-one conversation with that young man, maybe I can say something to him that will allow him to make the choice. Because that's it. I mean, literally, it is really singularly our choice. It is our choice 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day, whatever it is, of what I put in my mouth. I have a ton of friends that are doctors. I have a ton of educated people that are in my circle. This has been information, Doug, you got to lose weight, And it goes back to that Charlie Brown's teacher. Remember Charlie Brown's teacher when we were kids, that want. That's what you start hearing. And then if somebody hits you with some good information, you start looking in your mind for ways to disqualify them. So I would quickly ask people that got kind of more aggressive with me, well, were you ever morbidly obese? I'm not talking about 10 or 20 pounds. I'm talking about packing on a couple 100 pounds. Did you ever do that? Well, no, I never was your size. Then don't say anything to me. And that was my shield. That was the way I pushed them back. And I turned, even though, remember, I said they were saying good information, they were making sense, I was able to tune them out. So that's my motivation. If I can have a second chance, but if I can turn around and help someone else gain that second chance too, then that's a beautiful life. When you go into society and read the news, it tells you that, hey, at 40 years old, you're done. Your ship has sailed. And then you start seeing all these news about these guys that, hey, are 45 and 50, 55 and 60 that have switched to a whole food plant-based diet. And not only has their body transitioned, physically, emotionally, the whole 9 yards, they've then turned around and said, you know what, I have more energy than I did when I was 21 years old. So I don't buy the fact that once we hit 40 as a man, we're just done. I don't buy that at all. But honestly, for the past decade and a half of living as a fat man, to be honest with you, I'm not going to mince words with you. It's just one hit after the next after the next. And, one of my big recent ones is I took my family. I have a wife and 3 children. Okay. And I have 2 boys and a little girl, my little princess, love her with all my heart. We went to a water park and there's these big giant slides and she's going, Daddy, will you please go down to the slide with me? And I'm like, yeah, we'll do that. So we're walking over, we grab the tube, and she keeps asking me, hey, you promise you're going to go? It's really high. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. We get to the base to where you start climbing the steps, and right there's a big sign, weight limit 300 pounds. And I'm like, dude, I can't go. I can't go with you. And I mean, now you've got this 8-year-old girl that's crying, and you promised and all these things. That's just one of the many instances that I could describe. It's just holding me back from life. My weight is holding me back from living at this point. So I want a second chance.
Wow. I mean, I've got so many questions. Martika, have you got any thoughts, any questions first up?
Well, I think that what's interesting about anyone who makes any health behavior change or change in their life in general, that there's often an aha moment. You may have tried in the past, and you may have known that you should do it or be in a different place in the past. But what is that one moment that strikes you, and where suddenly you have this insight where not only should I do it, but I want to do it, and I'm going to try to do it. And in Doug's case, we've talked, and I've watched his video blogs, and he has a lot of interesting insights about his life as it's been for the past 15 years as a very obese man who peaked at 500 pounds at one point and started this particular journey at 430 pounds and has already been immensely successful in just 5 or 6 weeks. And but clearly you had an aha moment that triggered you to make the switch.
Absolutely.
Can you just describe to us, Doug, like how you feel? I mean, a lot of people, they go through these transformations. It takes years and years and years for them to, to see the transformation. 6 weeks in, how are you feeling in terms of energy levels and stuff like that?
Well, actually, I mean, I feel really good. I mean, I think I'm naturally hyper as it is. And to be honest with you, I think most big people are. If you go to a crowd and, there's a big person there, they've got that smile, they want to make people laugh, and I'll get to that later, but that kind of covers up the inner battle that we're fighting daily, to be honest with you. But as far as how I feel, I feel great. Last week's video, I talked about the ability to get out of a chair. And to someone that's not morbidly obese, they're like, why is that a big deal? Why getting out of a chair is your the top of the day? No, literally, man, I would go to people's homes and they'd be like, okay, you can sit over there. And I would walk up and I would test the couch. And if the couch was too squishy, I would make the joke, hey, I'll sit down, but you're going to have to help me get up. And I'm not lying. And it may take two of you, get my arms out and you guys just pull me up. So the fact of just being able to stand erect out of a chair, and not have to brace, and do the 1, 2, 3 and take the deep breath to lunge yourself up, that is huge. That is a huge feeling.
What made you find the whole food diet, plant-based diet, like community? What kind of led you into it?
Well, it's interesting. I've been married 16 years in April. My wife is a vegetarian. So when we first got together, I've always kind of worked in restaurants and those types of things. So I do know how to cook. And I remember when we first started talking, I was like, hey, why don't you come over and, I'll make you a prime rib and some grilled asparagus. And she's like, well, I don't eat meat. And I said, what do you mean you don't eat meat? She said, well, I'm a vegetarian. I said, you're a what? You're a vegetarian? Really? But she's so perfect that, we saw past that. The sad part of that, though, is, we dated, we got engaged, we got married. Once we got married, of course, then we move in together. I would come home, she would cook, but she was cooking vegetarian. And it was like, I don't want a salad. I want a prime rib, I only eat lettuce on my steak and cheese subs. You need to learn this, with double mayo. That's how I eat. So as we progressed, especially through our first year of marriage, I was rejecting more and more and more of her meals. And replacing them with mine, which was honestly pizza or Chinese food. Those were my pizza. I used to tell people is my cocaine. No lie. I mean, it wasn't one large pizza. It was 2 large pizzas, and then some buffalo wings and Coca-Cola to wash it down. But the thing with it is, I tend to, I can be argumentative, but if you come at me with facts, not an opinion, but you come at me with facts, I'll research it. So as we grew in our marriage, I started spending more time listening to her talk, listening to what she said. And so I spent more and more time studying. And I got to be honest, whether people, even when I was big, or not that I'm not big now, but even when I wasn't doing this whole food plant-based thing, I would tell people, it is my choice to eat the food I'm eating. My wife is right. She's not wrong. I don't want to eat it that way. So I've kind of always been there, but when I get fired up about something, then again, I'll immerse myself in it. And there's so many good documentaries out there now that anybody that says, hey, I'm interested in this, you can spend an entire weekend on Netflix and just get inundated with this information. You really can.
What was the first video that you watched, the first documentary?
Forks Over Knives.
And what was your immediate reaction to that?
It was actually, it was interesting because when I watched it, again, I didn't make the choice to go whole food plant-based, but I would tell people, hey, that documentary's spot on. You can't walk away from that documentary saying, hey, those guys are lying. That's just a really good documentary, laid out very well. So again, it came back to my choice as far as what I was going to eat. But on the flip side, I'm not going to argue with that documentary either. I'm not going to look at Dr. Esselstyn or Coldwell and say, hey, you guys are wrong. Oh, no. They're totally right. They're totally spot on.
You've done a lot of like dieting in the past. What
Yes.
gives you hope with the whole food plant-based diet as opposed to the other diets you've tried?
Well, I think I think the term diet in itself is kind of counterintuitive, though. It's, hey, I'm going to live my life this way, and then because the results of living my life this way packed on pounds, so now I'm going to change everything for a short duration of time, and then I'm going to go back to what I was doing. So if we constantly do what we've always done, we're going to get the same results. True? So, when the doctor and I were talking a couple of days ago, I made a comment to her that I read an article about a young lady that lost like 30 pounds. You know how she lost 30 pounds? She was wrapping herself with saran wrap at night, opening the windows and sleeping without any covers on. So basically all night long, she was shivering, causing that metabolic response, and she was losing weight, water weight, basically that way. Well, is that a long-term plan? No. And again, we can do things on a short term to gain short-term gains or loss in that matter.
Martika, do you agree with that? What do you think? Like whole food plant-based lifestyle for the long-term results, and these fad diets are really just really fatty?
Absolutely. Well, I think, every person who's, whether they've been 20 pounds overweight or 200 pounds overweight, has tried multiple diets, and everyone has found that if you diet, you can lose weight. You can eat Twinkies and donuts and lose weight. You can eat all meat and lose weight. You can, do all sorts of things to lose weight. But there's 2 things to keep in mind. Is it a healthy way to lose weight? So are you actually helping yourself systemically, helping yourself inside as you're losing that weight? Because even though weight loss itself by itself can provide some health benefits, it can also be hurting you if you're not, putting good things in your body and keeping the bad things out. And then the second thing is, can you sustain it? Because as Doug says, you can do anything for 2 weeks or 6 weeks or even 6 months, but is it going to last the rest of your life? Or like most people, are you going to yo-yo and revert back to what your previous lifestyle was and go back to the Doritos and the Cheetos and the Cokes, and the no exercise and the pizzas and lots of meat? Or is it something you can sustain forever? And one of the things I found particularly interesting about your background is that you were a football player in high school. So you were like a cool, fit guy. And how did, how does that inform your experience now? And because I don't think you were never the 250-pound young boy, were you?
Well, in football, I was down to my playing weight was 240.
Okay.
And,
how old were you? How old were you then?
17.
Okay, so you were adult almost.
Yeah. But for me, I was tiny until about the 6th or 7th grade. And then I got taller, but then I also got bigger. So I lived that bullying phase. I lived that fat kid life. I literally did. When I'm talking about, hey, my buddy would say, hey, do you want to go ride bikes for the rest of the afternoon? No, can we just play PlayStation or watch whatever's on MTV? I don't know. That's what I chose to do, because you start making those choices to not expel energy. And hey, let's grab the Doritos and Pepsi while we're walking out the door too. Football saved me from a lot of that, because all of a sudden I just became, big and strong, and I was pretty good at the game. But when the game left, all of a sudden, all of those eating habits of, 4 and 5 meals a day, and it was nothing to polish off a Papa John's pizza at midnight. No big deal at all. And you never gain weight. Actually, you were worried about losing weight because of all the working out you were doing. But once the game ended and the eating didn't, that's when that's honestly when the problems really began.
You talked about. Oh, go on, Martika. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, and you're a very tall man. You're 6'3".
Correct.
So you could, for a long time, carry that extra weight and just look like a big guy, but not look like a big fat guy.
Yeah, no, I remember. Okay, so when I got out of football, again, 240, 250. Okay, I then went up to 330, 340. And, I got to the point where, okay, now I'm too big. It was causing a lot of effect, my knees, my back, those types of things. So I lost the weight. And I remember being around that 300-pound mark, and people, I would tell people, oh, I'm 300 pounds. No, you're not. Because again, you had that height to carry it. Well, I just don't, it gets to the point where there comes so much, you can't hide it anymore with a sweater or whatever. It's there.
Doug, just really, really quickly, have you had like 2 minutes to give any kind of tricks and tips for people that want to start a plant-based diet but don't really know how to do it? What advice would you give them?
Well, I'm in sales, and I've been in sales for a long time. Okay, and when you're in sales, everything becomes an acronym. Okay, so that's how my mind thinks. What kind of acronym can I come up with? Okay, so I came up with the acronym of change. And it may not be perfect, but it certainly works for me. Okay, so the C stands for just making the choice. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to make that choice. It's you. For whatever reason it may be, it's your choice. You have to make it. So once you make that choice, I firmly believe you got to halt. You got to stop what you're doing. You have to stop life. Okay? Change isn't just going to happen. So stop everything you're doing at that point. Then once you go to that A, you start analyzing. Like I said, you start watching a couple of these documentaries on Netflix, you do get a quick basis of, hey, these are some good things that I should incorporate into my diet. Analyze, are those things in your diet? Are they absent? Those types of things. But upon that analyzation, then you can create your plan. How are you going to move forward? And then negotiate with yourself. When you and I were talking before the good doctor joined us, I said, hey, my first step was just maybe incorporating an apple into every meal, or one meal would be truly whole food plant-based, and then it became 2 meals. So negotiate with yourself. A lot of people, if they just turn around and stop everything, may not be able to make it through the effect. That day when I was laying in this bed with all the shades shut and I had the ice pack on, I knew, hey, all I got to do is get up, go to the store, grab a Coke, and this will stop. I knew that would stop it immediately. I had to fight my own battle to work through that. Okay. So negotiate with yourself on certain things. And once you get that analyzation, you got your plan, you've negotiated a little bit, go for it. You know, move forward, get it done. And then once you're doing that, go back and I end with that E. Number one, evaluate. You know, what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? I evaluate what I eat and what I'm going to eat tomorrow and what I've eaten this week. I do that every single day. You know, man, that's really good. I want to add that, or, you know, that's not so good. Let's put that away, you know, those types of things. But I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying, again, you brought up some of those things that have already happened to me with the energy. You know, so that's the neat thing about this diet too, is you do start feeling a difference pretty quick. So that would honestly be my advice, is for someone to sit down and just make the choice. You have to make that choice to change. You honestly do.
Awesome. That's a great acronym. Martika, I just want to ask you about Doug's sort of ambition is to lose 200 pounds. Do you think that is achievable? And how long do you reckon that will take if Doug kind of sticks to the program?
Well, it's absolutely achievable. It's absolutely been done. The key is, as he is already doing, is not to see this as, you know, I'm going to lose lots of weight in 6 months and follow a diet, but to see this as a completely new perspective on eating and how you view food, and exploring all the possibilities with the new kinds of foods you can eat and discovering new tastes. I think that's what's important. Doug has talked about in his videos how food was addicting to him. And, you know, we do get conditioned by fast food and processed food into really wanting and craving these really strong flavors. And sometimes when you go to broccoli, it can seem really bland and dull, and it really makes you miss that Coke, that really strong flavor of a Coke, or the, you know, lots of fat and lots of sugar or salt in these other processed foods. And Doug mentioned to me when we spoke that he was he had a new sense of taste, and he was suddenly starting to feel that vegetables tasted really good. And I think that's what sometimes people who are not quite there yet and haven't tried this, they can't possibly imagine how they could not want to eat steak or not want a burger or bacon. And, you know, I always tell people that every single vegan I've ever met used to eat meat and used to love meat. They didn't ever think they would give it up, but then something happened, and we know there's lots of reasons for giving it up. Something happened and they gave it up, and in most cases they don't miss it. If they miss it, we know there's some substitutes that are plant-based, but most people find that they just regret they didn't do it sooner, and that their taste evolves, and all of a sudden you discover these new foods that you love just as much as you used to love bacon. And you know, we all discover vegan comfort foods, and there's lots of whole food plant-based comfort foods. You can make mashed potatoes that don't have all the animal-based crap in them, but are healthy and still creamy, and still, you know, you want that food. So he's on the right track by viewing this as a long-term lifestyle. I think that it might take a couple of years. It might happen faster. You know, faster weight loss isn't necessarily better, but as long as he's on the process of losing weight every few weeks and tracking it and being accountable, but also to view, and Doug is already pointing this out as he posts about his weight loss journey, is that it's not just about the pounds. That certainly is important, but it's about the life he's regaining. And he's already posted about how he's sleeping better, and he can get up out of the chair like he didn't used to have to worry. You know, he used to have to worry about that, and now he can just spring up. He has more energy. He's being more active. He's doing more things with his kids. So those things are as important to focus on as the actual weight loss amounts themselves.
How much weight have you lost in the last 6 weeks? And big question, how much weight do you think, what's your target weight?
Okay, so I started out around 502. Okay. And that's an interesting story as well, how I determined that weight. But right now, as of this morning, I'm 387 pounds. So I am 43 pounds down, and that I can solely contribute to a whole food plant-based diet. Overall, now I've lost 113 pounds.
Just to clarify for people that haven't followed your channel yet, so what diet were you on when you lost the weight from 500 pounds?
I would say it was more closer to whole food plant-based than anything, but I still ate meat.
What's like your typical go-to meal at the moment?
Well, for me, I kind of am blessed with the palate that if I enjoy something, I can literally eat it day after day after day after day after day. Okay, so that does kind of help. Um, so of course, watching the documentaries, okay, you very quickly understand. Hey, I got to stay away from as much oil as I can. A lot of them will say flat out no oil. So I try to I try to follow that. So for breakfast, what I found is a product called muesli, which is the oat mix. And again, I watched a documentary with Rip Esselstyn, and he talked about, let's kick this thing up. So what I do is I take about 2 to 3 cups of muesli, all right, and I put, a handful of golden raisins, I put a handful of almonds, and then in my freezer I have this big vat of of all the different nuts. I mean, it's golden flax seed, it's sesame seed, it's all these different seeds, pumpkin seeds, especially a lot of them that are good for the men. And I put them in actually a coffee grinder. I don't drink coffee, but I have my coffee grinder, and I grind away, and I put that in there. And then I love rice milk. That is my go-to milk. So I put my rice milk. So I have that, and then I try to have at least 2 different pieces of fruits, whether it's an apple or banana and grapes, those types of things. That's pretty much my basic breakfast.
Let's move on to lunch. So typical whole food plant-based lunch meal now.
Really, it's beans and rice. It's a lot of salad. I know last week I got in a situation where I had to go down. I had get out of the house quickly, go down to the big city, come back, and I totally forgot my lunch. So back in the day, that would be, hey, that's Arby's, Burger King, McDonald's, those types of things. I actually just went over to National Grocers, and I found I found a really nice salad with some whole wheat tortillas and some hummus. And then again, my wife made some really good vegetarian chili. So I took that chili for lunch the next day and just put it in the whole wheat tortillas and ate those.
And what do you have for dinner now?
Dinner really is, I'm trying to do that more of okay, that's my least meal. I'm pretty much working out now every day, and especially in the evenings when I get home, because it allows me to kind of de-stress and kind of calm down. So really, for me, I always start out with a green smoothie, just water and some green food, because I want to get those I want to get those nutrients into my system. And then again, a lot of rice, a lot of beans. If she makes something, like that chili, then I'll have just a little bit of that. Again, I'm trying to make breakfast my biggest meal, lunch kind of my mid meal, and then dinner my smallest meal. Because there's no point. And that was, again, that was, back in the day when, that was my largest meal was dinner. That's when I would have that steak and then all of these things. And I wasn't working out. I would just go sit in my chair for a couple hours, watch TV, and then I'd just go to bed. So nothing was digesting that at all.
Martika, how important is exercise? Or if people just go on a whole food plant-based diet, will they lose loads of weight without the exercise?
Well, losing weight is a calorie equation. So if you burn more calories or take in less calories, you're going to lose weight. And there's individual differences as to how much you might lose. And some people may vary compared to someone else. However, and so you can lose a lot of weight much, much easier from dieting alone, as opposed from exercising alone. You'll lose it faster from the diet. But the problem with doing it from diet alone is that, and Doug is aware of this because we discussed it, and he had read about this, is that when you lose weight without exercising, you actually, a large percentage of your weight loss is not just fat you're losing, is not just water you're losing, but is also lean body mass, muscle tissue, and other tissues in your body. And so when you exercise while you are losing weight, it not only enhances the energy deficit you're creating, so in other words, adds to your calorie burn, but it also can minimize or even prevent the loss of muscle that will occur with the weight you're losing. So it's a healthier way to lose weight, exercising while you're on a diet or while you're eating less or changing what you eat. And essentially, even though Doug doesn't say he's on a diet per se, he's eating fewer calories, even though, as Doug says, he's full. He's not hungry because he's eating as much as he can. And that's the beauty of a whole food plant-based diet, is that there's a lot of fiber and water in plant foods, and they can be very satiating, and you can eat a lot without having to portion out teeny pieces for yourself. So it's important that he's exercising, and also important the type of exercise you're doing. And there's cardio and resistance training. Mainly he's focusing on cardio right now, and we'll add resistance training soon, I think.
Absolutely. That's a really good point you made about, you know, on a whole food plant-based diet, you can be full and still lose loads and loads of weight. That's kind of what I found. And I think that's the main difference between a whole food plant-based diet and other fatty diets. The other fatty diets rely on kind of not eating that much, but with a whole food plant-based diet, you can eat literally so much and you're still like losing heaps and heaps of weight.
Well, I saw a joke back in the day, or it was a comedian, and it was a heavyset comedian. And he said it as a joke, but it's true. Okay, so I identified earlier that pizza and Chinese were my go-to. I didn't turn down a Chinese buffet, man. I'll be honest with you. So, you know, you go to the Chinese buffet and everyone's like, oh, here comes the big guy. You know, he's not going to put away one plate. He's going to put away several. You know, so you get that point where you're sitting at the table, you're eating 6 and 7 and 8 plates. Okay, and then you're like, okay, I'm full. And then, oh, wait a minute, they just brought out more egg rolls. You know, so, you know, you go eat that. Where, like this week, I remember you were asking about lunches. One of my lunches, I took raw carrots and raw broccoli. Now, I had, she had made a soup, a potato soup. So I had some of that soup. So I ate the soup, and then I'm eating this raw carrot and raw broccoli. And holy cow, you're having to chew and chew and chew and chew and chew. And next thing you know, your stomach's full. I mean, it wasn't, hey, let's give this a couple minutes. You know, it's, I'm full and I'm going to be fine until dinner time.
What kind of exercises have you been trying?
Right now, totally focused on just the treadmill. Again, being, you know, the football, I know a lot about weightlifting. I know how to lift properly. I know how to do those things, but I've kind of put it in my mind that I'm not going to cross that road until I'm about 375. I really just wanted to establish the cardio routine. Because again, and again, going back to the whole guy thing, there's a lot of big guys out there that will go to a gym and they'll walk right in the gym. They'll go back to the bench press. They'll do 3 sets of 5. They'll go over and grab the easy curl bar. They'll do 3 sets of 10, and then they'll walk out the door. Their heart rate never raised. Yeah, they may be exhausted some of the muscles or whatever, but their heart never raised at all. So especially after football, when I went into the gym, cardio was absolutely, you still didn't want to do it. You had to do it, but you didn't want to do it. I'm finding now in this transition on this journey that I'm starting to really appreciate it more. So I want to continue building that appreciation before I throw back in any type of weightlifting.
So what are we talking? Like, are you walking like 3 miles per hour, 2 miles per hour? Have you tried to jog?
Well, when you're my size, you don't really calculate things in miles because the miles don't come that quick. But I'm calculating it in minutes, to be honest with you. So this week I got up to about 35 minutes, which, you know, I got me, I think, about 1.5 miles in. You know, I start out slow and start building from there. On one of my old videos, you know, I had someone write me, I think I literally was lapped by a turtle a couple weeks ago when I started jogging for the first time, you know, because it was a very slow jog. But ultimately, though, I want to be that guy that can come home and put on my shoes and go run a couple miles, though. That is the ultimate goal, you know.
Where do you think you'll be in, say, a year with this journey?
Ultimate goal for me right now, you know, because if you don't have a plan, you don't have anything. Because if you have a plan, then you're focused on something. Man, I want to get down to 200 pounds. I want to be able to look you in the eyes and tell you that I lost 300 pounds without any radical diets, which whole food plant-based is not radical. It's just a different way of thinking, okay? No crazy pills, no crazy eating routines, none of those crazy things. But then what I want to do is once I get down to 200 pounds, I really want to build that strength that I had kind of back in those football days, because I want to blow away that perception that whole food, plant-based, vegan, vegetarian, whatever, you're not strong, you're weak. I want to blow that misconception out of the water too.
Do you get a lot of people asking stuff like, oh, where do you get your protein from on a sort of plant-based diet, when you tell people that you're in a whole food plant-based diet?
Well, I hate to say it, but it is true on all the videos I've seen. I've never ran into a person that went to the doctors and came back and said, hey, I'm protein deficient. Ever. That seems to be the bit, well, where are you going to get protein? But I've never seen anybody that's protein deficient.
Why are there, Martika, why are there like so many misconceptions about that then?
Well, I think that it's been drilled into us that meat is protein, eggs are protein, dairy products are protein, but vegetables are a whole different category, when in fact there's protein and amino acids in every single plant food that comes out of the earth. So, and you can get as much protein as you need, assuming you're eating enough calories to sustain how many calories you need each day. So it's definitely not a problem to get enough protein, assuming you're eating whole foods, good foods, not junk food.
And are there any like supplements people have to take if they go on a plant-based diet, or can you get everything you need from plants?
Well, the one major supplement that if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet that you should take is vitamin B12. There is a risk of having lower levels of that, and even among meat eaters, and it is recommended for people over 50 who eat meat to also supplement with B12. So it's just something that in our diet either people don't get enough of, which can happen if you're eating just plant foods, or if you don't absorb it well, which can happen to anyone.
Obviously, you've lost a fair amount of weight so far. Can you just tell us maybe one or two things that kind of indicate that things are running smoother?
I've always been, for the past couple of years, pre-diabetic. Even if I fasted, my blood sugar level would be 99 to 105, right in that range. And that's getting close. And all the doctors be like, okay, you're pushing the boundary here. You need to do something different. Okay, Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, wah, wah. So I started this diet, and I didn't even think about checking my blood until a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, you know what? The weight's coming off. I feel better. Let's check it. So rolled over in bed. Literally, I pricked myself, get the blood going, and I take it. And it's 80. And I was so pumped up by that. My wife was sitting there. I woke her up. I was like, hey, check this out, man. Dude, my blood sugar is 80. That's awesome. And she's like, no way. And it was. So that was, that shows you again that power of the diet, because, our blood, it's the life force of our body. So if it's running better, as the good doctor said, if it's running better, the body's getting better. It's not just the physical and the inches and the pounds, it's the insides. There's a clear indication that, hey, things are running a lot smoother in Hyatt's body here. So
as far as diabetes, it is kind of amazing that you haven't actually come down with diabetes yet, although you have been diagnosed with pre-diabetes. And it is also interesting to the people who believe that carbs cause diabetes, that you're on a very high carb diet and your blood sugar numbers are lower than ever. So it's a testament to what a whole food plant-based diet can do, that your blood sugar is getting under control, and that is going to affect every cell in your body, because as that blood travels around your body and there's high blood sugar in it, it affects all the cells it comes across. So the fact that now you have normal blood sugar numbers, at least from your spot test, you haven't been back to the doctor yet to, have that officially be recognized with a longer term test, which is called an A1C or glycosylated hemoglobin test. But it looks pretty good based on, your measurements.
Awesome. And we'll be following your kind of journey, Doug. And if you're just watching this video for the first time, and you haven't watched any other plant-based news videos, please subscribe. We're going to follow Doug's journey. And if you want to get more regular updates, his channel will be linked down below, so head over to Doug's channel. With 113 pounds off, Doug has a long way to his goal of weighing only 200 pounds. To many it seems impossible, but I'm sure many have said the same about shedding 113 pounds, and yet he's done it. Not only that, but we've all seen at this point that even more can be done. And we'll be following Doug's journey the whole way.